Let's check in with the doc and look at things with a wider lens. Pastor Richards on OMG.
All right, let's see if we got him online. Hello, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, hi, Pastor. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Monday, got my weekend in, and always a good thing to get some rest on the weekend.
And you do sound very well rested. You sound, if you're not,
mine.
okay, well, I was just
I
going to
tell
say.
you, my kind of rest is not really like a sit-down kind of rest. My kind of rest is a switch gears kind of rest.
Okay.
So, the other part of the weekend, too, that I don't listen news on the weekend. I think I told you that. But for
That's good.
this weekend, I actually did tune in to listen. I think Saturday something I saw, I started following it, the killing of another
Yes.
black guy in Atlanta. And so I followed that, got caught up with that. And what I saw...
You saw the video?
Yeah, I saw the video and stuff like that. It bothered me so much to the point that I don't really dream, like I don't remember dreams, but I had a troubled night after watching that. So hence the reason I really shouldn't be watching news on the weekend. But what was interesting, I think it was Sunday, maybe yesterday or Saturday, I can't remember which of those 2 days, but I'm watching the protest, the new protest that has been spawned by this, and I saw I'm pretty sure I saw LGBTQ on with the protest, joining in the protest also. And I thought that was rather interesting.
Why, Pastor?
Because then the singular focus was about systemic racism, and I spoke to the issue of systemic racism on Thursday, moving it away from individual racism and saying, look, embedded within the system are some structures, policies, even laws and practices, customs, mores, you go on and on, that promote inequalities and give the blacks, they don't have equal opportunities on the basis of color only, in comparison to whites. And then after doing that, I listened to Chris Cuomo one night during the week also, and I heard him give a litany of all of the disparities I thought that was a rather interesting program because he was well researched and well documented, and he talked about whether it was housing. He had his facts to show the disparities between the outcomes for blacks and the outcomes for white, jobs, income, health. Even in the current coronavirus, he says there is a reason why, there's a sociological underpinning and reason why blacks are affected to a far greater extent with the coronavirus than the whites are. And the statistics back that up. He talked about prison population. And so this wasn't just police brutality. He talked about incarceration, fatherlessness, just about every social indicator the blacks are disadvantaged. And this is not as a result of one person showing racist tendencies towards another. This is not individual racism. This is something that the system itself produces. So that even if people are not of themselves being racist in their actions towards one another and discriminating towards a black man, if all your white friends and all the white people are really nice towards you, it doesn't change the fact that the system itself is producing different outcomes for blacks as compared to whites. And so the systemic, and so the cry now in the United States up to last weekend was, we've got to fix this. We've got to dismantle system. My friend who is writing his new book on the conditioning of society and the conditioning that produces systemic racism and the necessary reconditioning, which is something I've been talking about myself, re-engineering of society, so that it does not produce these kinds of disparities. And I mentioned last week that, he's writing that book. Again, all of it is pushing towards this funnel of systemic racism has to be dismantled. The society has to be reconfigured so that it does not produce this perpetually. So that was a singular focus. until this weekend when I saw another cause piggybacking on this, where you now saying, so you're widening now the thing and saying it's not just about racism only, systemic racism that produces a different outcome for blacks, but we also, the fringe movement is saying, we also have got to consider the discrimination against, gender, people of various genders outside of male and female, and the whole spectrum of transgender, and the fact that these people feel that they are discriminated against. And it's sort of hypocritical, I suppose, to talk about correcting a system that discriminates against black. If you're going to do that, then why not just make it a system, dismantling of a system that discriminates altogether, whether it is black or whether it is homosexual or whether it is lesbian, transgender, the whole spectrum. Entitled, there's this sense of entitlement. Maybe that's the wrong word, but there's this sense that we are part of this too. We want a part of the pie. We want our own rights in the same way blacks are going to be arguing and advocating, dismantling to get their rights. We stand alongside with them. And so I watched this weekend as they joined in the march. Well, a fellow minister that I have very engaging conversations with, we have this conversation going now based on whether or not this is a legitimate cause. Because I understand race differently than I understand gender. I'll be honest with you on that, and I just understand it differently. I see race as and the color of skin and all of that as being something of verifiable substance. I could tell when a man is black. I could tell when a man is white. For the most part, I can tell. And it is not a matter of I feel black, but it is a matter of I am black. I don't know if you follow me here. And I think there's a substantial difference between whether or not I feel black or I feel white, or whether or not I am legitimately and substantively black or white. And so when it comes to a matter of race and your skin color, it's quantifiable, it's easy verifiable. With the gender, I don't know that the gender is that well defined in terms of the fact that people now, are choosing gender on this spectrum of transgender. This is a new thing, well, relatively new. People. I was trying to figure out how many genders there are the other day, and I just gave up. I think it's probably near 70 by now. Others might say it's closer to 100 different genders. I don't know. I really don't know how you come by. I really do not know, outside of what is inside the person, how they feel. I really don't understand. I don't. And maybe I'm daft or something, but I just don't understand how you come by a particular gender. And the sometimes you even if a woman looks like a woman, or what you would perceive to be a woman, in some places you have to be hesitant whether you address her as a woman, because, and I've seen documented cases where people have been offended by being called woman on the basis of how they look, because they don't feel. So this is a matter, therefore, that is more in the feeling arena than in you have all of the outward parts that a woman normally would have. Logically, you would assume that that person is a woman. So my minister friend and I have been, I don't know if he wants me to call his name, so I will hesitate, but been having this discussion, and the fact that male and female, in Genesis chapter 1, 26 to 28, there talks about God creating not a wide spectrum of genders, but the Bible, which is our authority. The Bible is our authority, and so I am not with those who doubt the Bible and doubt the Word of God. I am actually one that I believe in the Bible. I really do believe in the Bible, and the Bible says when God created, He created male and female. I can't get away from that. I just can't get away from that. So in terms of what God nailed down in His Word, the Adam and Eve, Adam was male, Eve was female. Between Adam and Eve, between male and female, I don't see a wide spectrum of genders in the Bible. I just don't. So I have a hard time validating this new variable in terms of the number of genders. I have a hard time validating that from a biblical perspective. So my question, therefore, and this minister's question, therefore, should be, and it really is, as I watch the piggybacking or hijacking or whatever term you want to use as this singular cause, the singular cause being addressing systemic racism, and now you add in a rider. When I say you add a rider, you add on now the gender issues and the discrimination against the gender. And I thought, man, isn't this, I'm just asking the question, isn't this conflating the substantive matters of the systemic racism with the issues related to gender identity and whatever discrimination, real or perceived, related? And what does this say about the substance, the gravity of race relations? Is this, just let me ask, is this a diminishing of the core issue to say, well, it's just like other things, it's just like gay rights, it is just like rights for cross-dressers, is it okay to put the push for these other rights? Is it okay to elevate them to the plane of the civil rights for the black? The thing that Martin Luther King Jr. fought so hard for, the others, Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm, all the others, some more aggressively than others, but they fought and people died and people were jailed and all of that for these things. And it was it's an ongoing struggle for, it was not just a struggle of the 60s. It has been an ongoing struggle. And now this new thing, you're going to put that on the same plane? Is it okay to do? I mean, is it okay? I just, so the minister and I have been kind of like debating this back and forth, you know. So I didn't even intend to talk about that this morning.
You didn't?
No, I did not. I really did not, because normally on Monday I don't talk about issues and stuff like that, and so I don't even know how I got there. That's my thoughts.
I think it was a good question that you raised there, though, I must say.
My thoughts are all over the place with that.
No, that's fine. You're good.
Yeah.
And Pastor, I don't know if you want to continue on that, or if I can...
That's what I said. I didn't even intend to get started on it. That's all.
But do you think that we will see more of that happening? More groups of persons who feel like they've experience some sort of injustice, they feel that way.
Well, this is the thing, and they need movements of movements, and okay, let's go back historically. Every time that there is a major shift, it forms clusters. And even before the information age, when information was trending all over the world in a minute, in a millisecond, sometimes something happens in Australia, you hear about it in St. Vincent. That's the current age. But back then, scroll back 250 years to the 1770s. There was a wave of fight and rebellion going right up to the end of that century. And a number of nations moved towards independence. A movement spawns and spreads so that it is not contained. I continue to make historical reference to the French Revolution because that's a very important historical marker. Although subsumed beneath that is the Haitian Revolution, which I think is an even more, this is just me personally, so don't quote me, but I think that's an even more of a progenitor of rebellion and revolution and change. I really hold the Haitian Revolution very, very highly. So whether or not you want to look at the French Revolution, the fall of the Bastille, and the the bringing down of Louis XVI, if you want to look at those as trendsetters and movers, that's good. I look at the Haitian Revolution. But the point that I want to make is that whether it was Haiti or whether it was France or whether it was America or in other places, something was moving across the world all at the same time, a common thread of we will fight for independence, for liberty, for civil liberties. And so it kind of evolved around a central point. And this is what is happening now, especially with information being so readily dispersed. This is exactly what is happening now with this new fight for the dismantling of the oppressive system that creates disparities. You cannot contain it. I am very much aware that the energy has been created, that you cannot contain this thing and keep it to a singular issue of racism against blacks. You can't keep it, because the mood of the people, particularly the post-millennials, those who were born, after 2000, these people think differently, and they act differently. They dismantle authority, anything that they have a different sense of justice. Those who study the mindset of post-millennials and the worldview will understand that, they have, and that's why you see a lot of young whites marching with the blacks. Simply because, again, they push back the dismantled system. This is not, therefore, a matter that can be contained and remain isolated to fighting for black, equality. There are other forms of equality and other perceived disparities that people are going to feel like this is the time for the dismantling of structures that are oppressive. And so therefore, in the wake of this fight for the dismantling of systemic racism, you are going to have other attendant riders that will piggyback and jump on that and say, this is our time too. So it's not just a time for the dismantling of race issues, it's a time for the dismantling of all issues that are considered unfair. So yes, I expect, to answer your question, I don't know if you asked if it was fair, if it was right or something, but yes, I expect that the movement will attract and maybe assimilate other riders. And I just noticed one on Sunday or Saturday, which was the LGBTQ. But I'm sure other riders that feel disenfranchised, that feel left out, that feel that they're not getting a fair shake, I assume that other riders are going to get on board. Whether or not this is going to water down the push or give it more momentum is left to be seen. So, Daniel, and my listeners, if I said something amiss or off, forgive me. Normally I don't like to speak unless I've thought the thing through, and I didn't intend to speak this morning. So you got my raw, unfiltered thoughts on
Pastor,
this particular
you're a very
one.
well-spoken person for somebody who didn't sit and think about what you said. I must say that. All right, I'm gonna allow you to say whatever you need to in closing.
Actually, what I intended to say today, I wanted to talk about change, and that's what we've been talking about at Kingston Baptist Church. We are doing this series on making the changes, and we said change, for some people, change doesn't last. That's what I dealt with yesterday. It's not like people don't start changing, whether it's an addiction or you find out that a relationship is toxic, you want to change it, where you're hanging out that is not healthy, where you go hang on weekends or wherever. It's just you want to change lifestyle, your spiritual values. You're like, you know what, I got to change these things. So I'm aware that people start making changes, and I addressed that yesterday. I'm also equally aware that when people start making changes, sometimes stuff happens. And whether 1 month in or 2 months in, you're back exactly where you were before. And I said, you got to guard against that. It happens, so guard against it. And some of the things I pointed out, when you start making your change, don't become overconfident. That's one of the things I said, because you are human and we are weak. Daniel, we are human and we are weak. So don't feel invincible. Don't feel like I could just switch, whether you're a chain smoker, like, okay, I quit cold turkey, bab. No. don't get overconfident. Always be aware that you're human, you have weakness. You could easily slip back to where you were before. Also that you needed to discipline yourself because there will be time when even on a diet, for example, I mean, come on. You say, okay, I need to lose a few pounds, and then somebody just calls you up for some roast breadfruit and some stew pork. What are you going to say? No, so you have to discipline yourself. But the major one was the wrong crowd, because anytime you begin change, and I will finish up with this because I know time is,
Yes.
anytime you begin change, Daniel, one of the key things that you have to do is change your crowd. Watch, because your crowd will be the ones who are speaking into your ear. And sometimes they don't feel the weight of your change, and they don't understand the gravity. They don't feel the kind of momentum and why you had to make the change, or the urgency with which you had to make the change. And a lot of times they're the ones speaking into your ear, pulling you back to the very thing that you just left. So you have to watch your crowd. And I have found, and doing this over 30 years, that when people make changes but they don't change the crowd, or they don't change who they listen to or who's speaking in their ear, even on radio and media and all of that, some people just shut out because you know that they're just not bringing the right stuff to you. Just stop listening to them. Demotivated, time wasters, haters, instigators. Just stop. Just don't let them speak into your ear. You assume a lot of power, Daniel, by determining who you listen to. Daniel, you are self-determining. When you make up your mind, I'm going to listen to this person and this person, because they bring it. They support my change. But I'm not going to listen to this and this and this person. They're toxic, and they're going to work against my change. So I made that, point yesterday, and among other things. But lastly, here's the thing, because I was talking about Peter Peter in the Bible, who made really big changes, but he failed big time. Everyone knows that Peter denied. That was a huge failure. He started out following, and then he denied. And then the end of the story is, despite his denial, he made a big comeback. So the point I really made yesterday is this: it is not over when you fail. And I just felt like coming on the radio this morning, and this is the point I really wanted to make, to tell Vincentians, it is not over when you fail. You fall short in many ways. You make a boo-boo, you make a mess. It is not over when you fail. Because what I see in Peter's example, and what I try to practice, and what I teach my church people, it is this: we need to emphasize restoration over condemnation. How often have I lamented our tendency in this country to condemn people who fail, to rubbish them, to shame them, to put them down? They're fellow Vincentians. I take no glory in anyone who fails, Daniel. Even your worst enemy, you should not really want to see them fail. We do good for humanity. We do good for our country. Fact is, we do good for ourselves every time we help restore someone who fails and set them on their feet. Wish I had more time, but God bless you. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot, Pastor.
Take care.
Have a great day, too.
Let's check in with the doc and look at things with a wider lens. Pastor Richards on OMG.